Okay, how y'all doing? Maybe not so well after this thing I'm about to teach you. Okay, well, I've already taught it to you basically. You just have to carry out the process and find the two answers. Okay, you need to solve for x, you need to solve for y, and there's two equations. 1 times x plus 2 times y equals negative 14. And the other equation is y equals 1 times x plus negative 5. Now, one of these equations has a letter that is all by itself. There's nothing up against the front of it. And, and in this case, it would be the y, okay? So this one right here is what I call my base equation. So when we have our base, I want to put a box around the letter that's by itself and then circle the entire other side. You want to do that. You need to be very show your work correctly here. So now I write the other equation, the opposite one. So 1 times x plus 2 times y equals negative 4. Okay? Now I have a question. You need to circle the x or the y. It's not just whatever one you want. Okay? It's the one that's inside the box. Okay? The one that's all by itself. In this case, y. Please circle y. So now what you do is you write this down, but you're going to replace the y with an empty parentheses. So 1x plus 2, and then for y, make an empty parentheses, and then equals negative 4. Now extend that parentheses so it's wider. 1x plus 2 parentheses equals negative 4. Because I'm not just putting one number in. I am putting this entire expression here in because I've taken the y out and replaced it with what it's equal to, which is 1 times x plus negative 5. Okay, now I have an x and an x. The letters should be the same, so go circle the x because that's the one we're finding first. I make my rainbows. So I have 2 times 1x, that's 2x. And I have 2 times negative 5, which is negative 10. Now, as soon as I've written those two things, I cross out the parentheses and the outside multiplying number. Now, before equals, I have a 1x. So plus 1x equals negative 4. Okay, here's my equals. The x's are on the same side, so we make our adding pyramid. And I take 2 plus 1. 2x plus 1x, that's 3x. Cross those out. And before I have equals, I have plus negative 10 equals negative 4. Okay, so I want to dot my x, the only one I have, circle it. And I have this negative 10 here. Now, if it's negative, the opposite of negative 10 is positive 10. So I have 3 dot x, the equals, and negative 4 plus 10 is 6. Okay, and then it's time to divide. And 6 divided by 3 is 2, so I put 2 in that first answer. Now, getting the other answer is really easy. Okay, you go into this little circle, and you replace the letter, parenthesize it, and I have an answer for that letter. I have 2 for an answer. Okay. Okay, and then I can replace that on my calculator. I can take 1 parentheses 2 plus negative 5. 1 times 2 plus negative 5 is negative 3. Okay. Next problem. Okay, here is where I have the letter by itself. So that's the base equation. So I want to box up the letter by itself and circle the other side. Now write the other equation. 5x plus negative 3y equals 7. Okay, so I got to circle x or y, but not just whatever one I want. The x is in the box, so we got to replace the x. Okay, whatever I see in the box is what I circle. So I've got 5 make an empty parentheses in place of what you circle, plus negative 3y equals 7. Now just make that parentheses a little bit wider. 5 parentheses plus negative 3y equals 7. Okay, and in that parentheses, I put what x is equal to, 1y plus 9. So I have a y here and a y here. So I will be solving for y first. So I make my rainbows. 5 times 1y is 5y, and 5 times 9 is 45. So 5y plus 45. Now cross that out. Before I have equals, I have to add a negative 3y in the equation, and then equals 7. Okay, so here are my two y's. Okay, and add them together. They're on the same side of the equation. We just draw the adding pyramid. So I add 5 to negative 3, and that's 2. So 2y. Now before equals, we have the 45 equals 7. Okay, so I can dot my y, circle it, and yeah, I need to switch that to minus 45 to undo the addition, and 2 dot y, and 7 minus 45 is negative 38. And then I divide by my 2, divide it in half. So negative 38 divided by 2 is negative 19. So my y is equal, I can put a negative 19. Okay, now I use the base equation. I go in my circle, x equals 1 times y plus 9. Well, if I know y is negative 19, we can parenthesize that and replace it with negative, I'll put it up here, negative 19. That's a negative 19. Okay, so I go 1 parentheses negative 19 and add 9. That gives me negative 10. Okay. Okay, next problem. Solving for x and we're solving for y. Okay, so I'm solving for, 3 times x plus 3 times y equals negative 18, and then just y itself equals 4 times x plus 14. So here's where we have the y itself. Okay, so this is my base equation. So that's where I box up the letter by itself and circle the other side. Okay, so I write the other equation. 3x, that means 3 times x plus 3 times y equals negative 18. Okay, so the y is in the box, so it's the y we circle, okay? Whatever's here in the box is the letter I circle. And then I replace that with an empty parentheses. And now I make that wider, 3x plus 3. From here to here, it's just about making a parentheses longer, so we can fit what y was equal to, which was 4x plus 14. Okay, so I have x and x, so I'm solving for x first. So I've got, take 3 times 4x and 3 times 14. So that gives me a 12x. 3 times 4x is 12x. 3 times 14 is 42. Okay, and as soon as we have those two things, those two terms, we can eliminate that. Now before equals, we have a 3x equals negative 18. Okay, so again, I have multiple x's, and they're on the same side, so it's the adding pyramid, so add. And 12x plus 3x is 15x plus 42 equals negative 18. Okay, so here's the x. I want to dot that. 15 times x plus 42 equals negative 18. So I can undo the plus by minusing 42. And I have 15.x, and then I can put my equals. And negative 18 minus 42 is negative 60. Okay, and then I divide by 15. Okay, so negative 60 divided by 15 equals negative 4. So I can put that in my first answer. Okay, then to find what y equals, well, use your base equation. And this thing inside the circle, we parenthesize the x because I'm going to replace it with negative 4. Okay, I'm going to put a little negative 4 there so you know what I'm putting in. You can't see it very well. I have parenthesized it, and I have put this answer in for x. So now y equals 4 times negative 4 plus 14. So I find 4 times negative 4 plus 14. Negative 2. Okay, my next problem. Y equals 4 plus negative 3 times x, and 5 times x plus negative 1 times y equals 22. So, this is my base equation, because I have a letter by itself. So I box that up, circle the other side. Write your other one. 5x plus negative 1y equals 22. Okay, now I either circle x or y to know which one. It's this letter here. It'd be y. Okay, so y comes out. So 5x plus negative 1, make an empty parentheses, equals 22. Now extend that so it goes further. You're just making that parentheses wider because we need to fit this entire expression in for y. 4 plus negative 3x. Okay, so I draw my rainbows. So I take negative 1 times positive 4, and that's negative 4. And I take negative 1 times negative 3, which is positive 3x. You may now cross that part of the expression out. And before it equals, I have to add a 5x in there, and then equals 22. Okay, so here are my x's. Again, they're on the same side, so we want to draw the adding pyramid. Okay, so 3x plus 5x is 8x. And then I add negative 4 equals 22. Before equals, we got to remember there's a negative 4 that has to be added. So I dot my x, circle it. Opposite of negative 4 is plus 4. And 8 dot x equals 26. So I divide by 8, divide by 8. So I divide 26 by 8, and that is 3.25. So, and by the way, it's x, so that's my first answer, 3.25. Okay, now to find what y equals, you go in that little circle, and I got the answer for x, so get rid of that, and we're going to put 3.25 in its place. Okay, so I have 4 plus negative 3, and then 3.25 in for the x. Negative 5.75. Okay, next problem. X equals 6 plus negative 4y, and then 2x plus negative 3y equals 1. Okay? So this equation serves as the base because it has an x without a number in front of it or anything else with it on one side of the equation, so it's isolated. So I'm going to box up the x and circle the expression that x equals. Okay, now write the other equation. 2 times x plus negative 3y equals 1. Okay, you got to circle one of the letters. It's x in the box, so I circle the x. So I've got 2 parentheses plus negative 3y equals 1. Now make that parentheses so it is longer. You write the same thing here that you do here, just make your parentheses longer. Okay, and I can replace that with 6 plus negative 4y. Okay. So I take 2 times 6, that's 12. I take 2 times negative 4, that's negative 8 with y. Okay, before equals, I have to add a negative 3y and then 1. Here's my equals. By the way, we're solving for y first because those are I have 2 y's. Sometimes it's x, sometimes it's y. You got to look out. Okay, so I draw my adding pyramid because they're on the same side. So negative 8 plus negative 3 is negative 11y. Then I have 12. And then I have 1. Okay, so I dot my negative 11y and circle it. And the opposite of plus 12 is minus 12. So negative 11 dot y then equals 1 minus 12 is negative 11. Okay, so I divide by negative 11. And y equals 1. Okay. Okay, now what I do is I go into the circle. Okay. So I have an answer for y, so I parenthesize the y, and I'm going to put a 1. Okay. 6 plus negative 4 times 1, or parentheses 1. Parentheses means times. Okay, and that is 2. X is 2, y is 1. That's where the two lines would meet. Okay, 4 times x plus 3 times y equals 0. And then y equals negative 2 times x plus negative 2. All right, so here's my variable all by itself. So I box it and I circle the other side because this is my base. Okay, I write the other equation. 4x plus 3y equals 0. Okay, y is in the box by itself. Again, it's y I want to circle. So I've got 4x plus 3. Make an empty parentheses. And now just write the same thing, but just with the parentheses wider. And equals 0. Okay, now I put what the y was equal to in the expression. It was equal to negative 2x plus negative 2. Okay, rainbows. 3 times negative 2x is negative 6 with x. 3 times negative 2 is negative 6. So here's the parentheses and the 3. Let's get rid of those. And before equals, I add my 4x. Okay. Okay, so we would be solving for x first. Okay. So I want to draw my adding pyramid. So I add negative 6 plus 4 is negative 2 with x. And then I add my negative 6 before I have equals 0. Okay, so I dot my x, circle it. I have a negative 6, so I have a plus 6 to both sides. And negative 2 dot x equals 6. Okay, now I can divide by negative 2. And 6 divided by negative 2 is negative 3. So that's my first answer for x. Okay, now y equals negative 2x plus negative 2. Well, I know that x is negative 3. So parenthesize the x. I'm going to put a negative 3 right there. So I have negative 2. Because y equals, now y now equals negative 2 times negative 3 plus negative 2. The x is no more. Okay, I got 4. So x is negative 3, y is 4. Okay, last one. X equals 2 times y plus negative 5, and then I have 2 times x plus negative 1 times y equals 11. So this would serve as my base equation, and it's an x, and I circle 2y plus negative 5. Okay, so I write the other equation, the equation that is not the base, because it doesn't have a letter by itself. 2x plus negative 1y equals 11. Okay, so X is in a box, so I circle the X. Okay. Well, again, whatever letter's here is the one you circle. I can't emphasize that enough. Whatever's the letter by itself, and it will work out. So 2 parentheses plus negative 1y equals 11. Now just make that parentheses wider. Plus negative 1y equals 11. And in that parentheses, we'll put the 2y, because that's what x, this was, it used to be x, but x is equal to this, so I put 2y plus negative 5. Okay, so I'm solving for y first, because there's 2 y's here. So rainbow that, 2 distributed property, 2 times 2y is 4y. 2 times negative 5 is negative 10. Okay, now we can just cross that out. Before equals, I have to add a negative 1y equals 11. Okay, so here's the equals, and the y's are on the same side, so add. So 4 plus negative 1 is 3y plus negative 10, because we cross those out after I get my 3y. Those added up to 3y plus negative 10 equals 11. Okay, so I want to dot my y and circle it, and then I'm going to plus 10 and plus 10. So 3 dot y equals 21, and then it is time to divide. 21 divided by 3 is 7, and that's the answer here. Okay, so x. Well, x equals 2 times y plus negative 5. Well, I have my answer for y. So replace the y with 7, okay? So I've got 2 multiplied by 7 plus negative 5, and that's 9, okay? Okay, this one here, 3 times x plus negative 4 times y equals negative 16, and then x, okay? This will obviously be my base because it's x equals. Okay, and then 3x plus negative 4y equals negative 16. Okay, so it's the x I want to circle. So I have 3, put an empty parentheses, and then I plus negative 4y. I write the same thing down except in empty parentheses where the circled letter's at. Okay, now we extend the parentheses and add negative 4y, same thing. And I will be putting 4y plus negative 40. If you can fit it in there. Okay, so I have 2 y's, so I'll be solving down here first. 3 times 4y and 3 times negative 40, so that's 12y. 3 times negative 40 is negative 120 plus negative 4y equals negative 16. Okay, because after you multiply that out, get rid of it, and then we have to add a negative 4y. Okay, so the y's are on the same side, so we need to add, okay? 12 plus negative 4 is 8, so 8 y's. And then I need to add negative 120 equals negative 16. Okay, so I dot and circle that, 8 times y, but there's a negative 120 being added, so I'm going to want to do the opposite of negative 120, which is positive 120, which means I will add 120. So 8 dot y. And then we take negative 16 plus 120, okay, 104. And then divide by 8 and divide by 8. So 104 divided by 8, 13, okay, so y is 13. Okay, now I've got to find x. What equals 4 times y plus negative 40? So I now have my answer for y, so replace that with 13. Okay. So 4 times 13 plus negative 40. And I get 12. Okay. That's all I have to say on that. Hope it's been informative, and